Boom! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, viewers of the chats, Jets fans, welcome to a very special edition of this week's episode of ArmChair GM. As some of you know, as most of you know, GreenBean is headed up to Jersey and Long Island to be part of the TalkinJets Draft party that they're doing this year, which is absolutely phenomenal. So I asked my good friend, Mr. 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚 of New York Jets Situation Report, to join me today as a part of ArmChair GM. So guys, first things first, I want everybody in the chat to let me know and make sure if you can hear Gunny when he's about to talk and everything like that. And if you can't, please tell me, because then I have to fix something. I just don't want to make sure there's an echo and everything like that. Gunny, how are you this fine evening, good sir? Yeah, I know, you weren't behind the scenes.
Excited. The New York Jets will be drafting the next components, the next pieces of the puzzle, so to speak, tomorrow. I'm pumped for it, man. I'm so sick and tired of the mock draft. I'm so sick and tired of the what ifs. I'm so sick and tired of what can be, the trade ups, the trade backs. It's over. In 24 hours, the draft kicks off, and we're going to start getting legitimate answers. So I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped.
And it's going to be so great to never have to talk about some of these prospects ever again. You know what I mean? Like, I am so ready to never have to talk about 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚 ever again. Because the conversation about 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚 has gotten so absurd on my perspective. Like, the other one is going to be Brock Bowers. It's a great example of, dude, I like Brock Bowers, and I never want to talk about him again. You know what I mean? So it's going to be great that in a couple of days, we're going to be in a situation where we're going to know. That's it, period. We're going to know what we did, and now the conversation can be, hey, you know what? Is it the right move? Is it a bad move? What's going on there? And all of that stuff. So, dude, we are, I believe, 24 hours away, right? Because doesn't the draft start at 8 tomorrow, and it's 8 right now?
Yeah, it's exactly 24 hours away before we kick it off. I'm pumped, man. This is I feel like we've been waiting for this for way too long, right? Like, I know it's only been since since Rodgers went down.
I was about to say.
It's only really been since, January, since football was over, February. But I feel like this has been the longest 2 months, 2.5 months, however you want to look at it, without football. I'm excited, man. This draft it's got so much implication of how this roster can get rounded out and pretty much the chef's kiss on what's been a pretty good offseason for Joe Douglas, man. This free agency period was awesome. To see what he has left in the freaking the backpack to go ahead and cook up for us in the draft is going to be a good time. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, Gunny, is that this offseason, more than anything, has been so up and down for Jets fans. I can't speak about your mental health in this situation, but I know at least for me in this whole time, it was how are you going to fix this offensive line? Because you have to replace Laken Tomlinson. How in the world are you going to do that and also find 2 tackles? How are you going to make this team better? If it was so easy to find 3 starting offensive linemen, why haven't the Bengals done it since they drafted freaking Burrow? Why haven't all of these teams? Why did Kansas City go into last year with one of the worst tackle rooms I've ever seen? They had to rely on, let's call it what it is, magic from Joe Thuney and Creed Humphrey. And then Thuney went down, and then it was just magic from Patrick Mahomes. And it's just like, I was scared because it was obviously, how are we going to fix this offensive line? Are we really in a position where we're going to have to force a pick at 10 and everybody's going to know about it? And the Falcons pick has been for sale since before the season was over. The Bears pick has been for sale. Like, a team's going to come up and get our guy again. And so you have the stresses of that. And then the ups of, oh my God, they did it. Tyron Smith is a New York Jet. Who thought Morgan Moses was going to be available? And all of these different things. And it's just like the ups and downs. And how is Alan Lazard employed in the NFL? And then the freaking what's his name story. I'm not even gonna say his name because I forget the lucky touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. What's his name? I forgot him already.
Mecole
Hardman and all of that BS. Like, it's just so much crap over and over and over. It was just, hey, great story, bad story. Rodgers is going to be VP. Rodgers is going to retire. Tyron Smith, but he's been hurt. And, oh my gosh, Mike Williams, but he's not going to be ready till week 4. And it's just up. I'm just tired of it. Can I just know what the roster is going to be and just be excited? That's it. That's what I want to be. Just give me excitement or disappointment. I don't want ups and downs. I just want excitement or disappointment. That's it.
No, that's fair, man. That's fair. I think it's been a roller coaster. I think that's the only way to describe it. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. You're talking about a team that had Super Bowl aspirations last year. We all saw it come crumbling down and crashing within 4 snaps. Going through the season, having hope throughout the season, winning some games we didn't think we were going to be able to win, to when it mattered the most, the New York Jets showed up and they decided to go ahead and kill us and crush our hopes and dreams. Winning games that ultimately impacted our position in the draft when some Jets fans wanted to lose out, some wanted to still beat the Patriots. It's been, I guess you could say, a turbulent freaking offseason or season of football.
Yeah.
For the New York Jets. And then you go into the offseason where it's a lot of the same thing, man. I think the New York Jets have gotten better. I don't think, without a doubt, the New York Jets got better this offseason.
Yep.
I think they've added components and pieces that are going to be impact components next year. And I've been on the record as saying that the move of a guy like Mike Williams is going to be responsible for a couple of Jets wins this year. Single-handedly, he'll be responsible for a couple of Jets wins this year. Aaron Rodgers being back in the fold in itself is huge, right? Tyron Smith gives us freaking 14, maybe 15 games and then shows up in the playoffs. That's an incredible season. I think I think Joe took some, how do I put it? Joe took some high risk, high reward type of moves in the offseason, but these are proven like rewards. This isn't a bunch of guys who, right now with the draft, everything is, you're taking the gamble on what they can be. We know what these guys are.
Yep.
We know what they're capable of when they're on the field. So I'm excited about it, man, but I get what you're saying. I'm just ready for us to go ahead and see the final product put together. Let's get to training camp, start getting these guys gelling, and get the football season here already, man. I'm already excited about the fall time being here.
Yeah, I think what you said is going to transition into our topic today perfectly, which is the roster that Joe Douglas has built. And I know you and I disagree on this one take, which is the roster construction is very clearly, in my opinion, coming from a man who knows it's boom or bust this season. It's go out and win or lose your job at the end of the season. And I know that you think that if Woody's going to look at this roster and be like, this is the best Jets roster we've seen in a long time, how are you going to fire the guy who constructs that? And I get that point, but I still think like it's so many. I think one of the Connors, I can't remember if it's Hughes or if it was Rodgers. I believe it was Rodgers said, maybe it was Hughes. Somebody in the chat will let me know that the New York Jets roster no longer has any holes. The New York Jets roster doesn't have any holes. It has no problems on the roster, top to bottom. The only thing that the roster has is ifs. If Tyron Smith stays healthy, if Elijah Vera Tucker stays healthy, if Mike Williams, Aaron Rodgers there's ifs. But if that works out, we know what the product is. We know how good Aaron Rodgers is. We have 20 years of that. We know how good Tyron Smith is. We have 15 years of that. We know how good AVT is. We have 4 years, or technically 3 years of that. We know how good these players are when they're on the field. It's just about if they'll be on the field. Let's get to some chat. Blitz Crew with the super chat. Thank you very much, guys. Super chat, skip the line, go straight to the situation and support the channel. What do you think is JD's smoke screen move this year, Gunny? What do you think? We haven't heard a lot from JD yet. We've got the podcast with Daniel Jeremiah, right? I don't know if you listened to that. And then the interview that he did, obviously. What did you walk away with as this is the smoke screen move? Because I have an answer.
I think the whole Brock Bowers thing is a huge smokescreen. I think the fact that you saw him talk about tight end being impactful, but being wise enough to say, like, yeah, you see the guys he wind up naming were all guys drafted in later rounds. I thought was a nice like chef's kiss of turn. The right tight end can be in a weapon. I think the Brock Bowers conversations is a smokescreen. Jody doesn't do that. Jody does not do that. He doesn't go ahead and talk about the actual move he wants to make. He complimented the wide receivers, the offensive line, but then went in depth with what, the right tight end can do in the right offense. I felt like he was trying to oversell it, and it's very unlike Joe D. I think he's happy with his tight end room. And I think most Jets fans should be happy with the tight end room. I think that conversation made me believe that it was actually more so leaning towards a wide receiver vice offensive line, because before I really thought it's JD. He's going to go offensive line, protect himself from Aaron Rodgers. But I think his press conferences led me to believe he's throwing out the whole Bowers aspect. Look over here, guys. Tight end, Bowers, boom. And he's trying to go ahead and get one of those wide receivers. Potentially, that little freaking smoke screen could potentially make somebody move up to pick 9 or pick 8 just to get Bowers because they're really in love with the kid. And maybe a guy like Odunze does drop to us. So I think the smoke screen for me, the smoking gun, so to speak, is the Brock Bowers or the tight end conversations he had during some of his interviews.
I totally agree, because it wasn't that he just talked about Bowers. I'm going to take that a little bit further, because you're right. In his press conference, that he made sure to mention specifically the tight end room. Specifically, he went and he said, hey, look at not the tight end room, but the tight end. You've got a superstar weapon in this tight end. But I also feel like he did a little bit more service on the offensive line than he had to. And why would he talk about that? Why would he show his cards if it wasn't a move to try to convince teams to go up to 8, everybody knows that 8, 9, and 10 are for sale. Everybody knows 8, 9, and 10 are for sale. And I think it's just like you said, it's a smokescreen trying to get people to come up. We did, I don't know if you watched it, yesterday on Monday we did a full first-round mock draft with all the guys here at Talkin' Jets, and one of the moves that we had happen was the Colts came up 2-9 with the Bears to get Brock Bowers. It seems like they're a team that are infatuated with Brock Bowers, and here's a smokescreen. Here's an opportunity to say, if Brock is there, we're going to take him and pivot. It's the same thing that we saw last year where they talked about the offensive line, and it seemed like the pick was always going to be Will Anderson or Michael Mayer, and that's what they wanted. And so while I don't agree, I don't think they're happy with the tight end room. I think they want to add another piece there. I don't think anybody, sorry, GreenBean, I know you're in here and everything like that, and you're going to yell at me at this. I don't think anybody should be totally happy with 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚 as tight end 3. I love Kenny, and I think he earned the opportunity to legitimately compete for tight end 3, but I'm not going to hand him that job. If we can get better there, let's get better there. But I think you're right. I think everything to me pointed to wide receiver, and I hope it works out that way, because that would make me very happy, because I've been on that since day one. A weapon. But there it is, GreenBean in the house. Let me move you over here, and let's do this thing, guys. This is the boom. Nope, I just went away. I'm gone. Oh no.
I still see you on my screen.
Yeah, you still see me, but the chat can't. I went away for the chat. That's on me.
Yeah.
So this is the current New York Jets roster. What's that website that you use, Gunny? I think it might be better. For the depth chart.
Say it again.
What's
NFL draft buzz.
No, not for the draft stuff. For the depth charts, for the Jets depth chart. There's one that everyone uses. I forget what it's called.
I use a Football Reference. That's the one I use.
There it is. I couldn't think of it. This is gonna go to the Texans, because I was just looking at the Texans stuff because we were on Twitter talking about the Texans. Nope. 2024 depth chart. Oh, it doesn't have the depth chart. Guys in the chat, what's the good one? There's another one that everyone uses for.
PFF use a lot.
I had PFF. I didn't like how it showed up on screen. There's another one.
PFN? Is PFN one?
No. NFL depth.
I mean, yeah, I guess you can use NFL.com depth charts.
No, there was a really... I'm going to use ESPN. ESPN tends to be okay. I don't love ESPN, but they're fine. There we go. There we go. That should be good enough. So here are the projected depth charts for the New York Jets. Everybody should be able to see it and everything like that. And Gunny, all I wanted to do today is you and I, we're going to go position for position, group for group, and just talk about, hey, is this a group that you're interested in addressing at all? Is this a group that you think we need a body? If we need a body, how do you want to get that body? Do you want to get that body in the draft? And if so, where? And just keep it real simple, and all of that stuff. Guys, yeah, the screen is a little dark. I don't know why it's doing that. I am sorry. I don't have a fix for that. I thought I did, but I don't have a fix. Let me see. That doesn't fix it. Yeah. I don't know why it's going a little bit dark, if I'm being honest, but it is, and there's not much I can do about it. But it should be zoomed in enough. Everybody should be able to read all that. But let's go talk about it. Right now on the roster, technically speaking, we only have 2 quarterbacks. It's Aaron Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor. And the question should be is, do the Jets draft a developmental guy, right? I don't want to speak for you here, Gunny, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't want to be in a situation where we bring in another backup, like in money-wise, like or like big money-wise. So for this third quarterback spot, what is your opinion on it? Are you part of the team that wants to draft a developmental guy? And if so, what guys are standing out for you?
Yeah, now I'm definitively on team bring in a guy. I think you've got to take advantage of the fact that you've got Aaron Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor in the room, both guys who have played at a high level at their respective positions. Tyrod Taylor is a high-level freaking backup quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is a multiple-time MVP, first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, a master of the game, a technician of sorts. I think you take advantage of the opportunity to go ahead and bring in one of these young guys to kind of sit back and get to learn and watch these guys operate day in and day out. You put them in that quarterback room, and they become a sponge. I think ultimately we have never done that. As an organization, we've always drafted a guy, and we threw them into the freaking fire. Mm-hmm. Quarterback is such a cerebral position. These guys are coming out of college, right, where they were They were the top dog, to coming to the NFL where everybody's talented. They need a moment to acclimate. Not everybody can just hit the ground running. Not everybody is C.J. Stroud. That's just not the reality of it all. Some individuals take a minute. Josh Allen's a great example of that. He took a minute, right, to go ahead and become one of the top quarterbacks in the league. So for me, I believe the move is to go ahead and bring somebody in from this draft class. My dream scenario would be somehow that Spencer Rattler is available in the 4th. I don't see that happening. I think he's going to go on the 2nd.
Yeah.
I know you told me you didn't like this, and I know Dom doesn't like this, but I'm sorry, man. I still like myself some Jordan Travis. I think Jordan Travis, although he will not be somebody you can really utilize this season as he's going to be recovering from that broken leg, is somebody you bring in to sit behind Aaron Rodgers, sit behind Tyrod Taylor, and the dude can just learn, right? I mean, the guy can improvise. He seems to be really calm and collected in the pocket. He showed enough flashes for me that I think with the right kind of mentors in front of him, he can go ahead and clean up some of the concerns that you and Dom have in regards to his mechanics. But I went back, man, and when I watched some of his tape, I saw really good throwing mechanics, man, especially from his waist up. I know his footwork sometimes can be a little bit concerning. But I like his ball security, man. I like he can run the ball, he can pass the ball. He's a dual threat quarterback, and I think when you got a guy like Tyrod Taylor back there, who's a dual threat guy, and a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who's known to have been a mobile guy. Now, man, I like Jordan Travis, and I believe he'll be there available for us with one of the 4ths, even possibly with one of the 6th. But I wouldn't risk it. I'd grab him in the 4th round. For me, Jordan Travis is the guy that I think the Jets should bring in to go ahead and have sit and learn behind 2 of the guys who've been doing it for quite some time.
Yeah, I am completely in kind of the opposite realm. Like, there isn't a quarterback in this class that I look at and I go, yeah, that's my guy. that I want to get in this draft at all. And I think the biggest problem that I have with a lot of these guys, like I'm not a Spencer Rattler fan, I'm not a Jordan Travis fan, I'm not a Joe Milton fan, I'm not a Sam Hartman fan, is because there are just things with their games. Like even the guy that I would like, again, he doesn't make it that far. I think he's probably a second or a third round pick, is Michael Pratt out of Tulane. But all of them have these problems in their game, or at least when I look at it, that I don't fundamentally see changing. That's the thing is like you can have the brain for the game and just mechanically not do it. You know what I mean? You can be smart enough to play the game, but your body just can't do it. We see that all the time. How many of these quarterbacks like played in the NFL, weren't all that great, but are incredibly intelligent off the field types of guys? Like a guy that I think about like that is like Josh McCown. McCown is a perfect example of a guy who was in his head. I think he knew every move that he needed to make. He couldn't get there fast enough, and he couldn't do it fast enough. And that was the biggest problem. So I am totally out. And I think the biggest thing is value. In the fourth round, you can get, and I'll transition to this other position because this is where I want to go. Like in the fourth round, you can get RB2/3. And the value there is much better for me because yes, you're doing a pick for the future, but I just don't see anything about Spencer Rattler, about Jordan Travis, about Joe Milton, or even the guy that I do like in Michael Pratt. I don't see, even with them being in a quarterback room with Aaron Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor, I don't see them being anything more than perennial backups. That's their ceiling for me because they've either got horrible throwing motions, small hands, they're just way too erratic, or there's something there that I don't think is going to fundamentally change. And I don't feel confident going into the third round with a guy like Xavier, like going into the season with a guy like Xavier Holiday as your RB3, which leads us to the next position, which is the running back room, which people in the chat can see. It's Breece Hall, Israel Abanikanda, and Xavier Valade as the three guys, and then it has this Jacques Patry as the other guy there. I'll say my bit, and then I'll let you go about it. So when it comes to the running back position, this is a spot where I'm torn. Because if there is a handshake deal with a guy who's out there that you feel comfortable to bring in to be your third and one type of back who's just going to run between the tackles and take a hit, awesome. Like, I'm cool with it. Don't go in the draft. You don't need to get anybody, like, at all. But if there isn't that, if the plan is to go in the draft, I think the fourth round is a perfect spot to do it and to give a name that I think that we should look out for, and I would love to bring in, and this is a free agent, and this would be my ideal plan, is I would love to bring in a guy like Kareem Hunt. I know he's 29. I know he's not the best player, and doesn't have the legs that he used to, but the idea of bringing in a guy like Kareem Hunt is not to have the best running back. We have Breece Hall. He is running back 1 and 2. What I'm looking for is a guy who can run between the tackle, put his head down, and just take the big hit so that Breece doesn't need to. What say you? What do you think about our running back room right now? How would you address it? How would you go about fixing it?
Yeah,
if it needs to be fixed at all. If you think we're good, that's an option too.
It does. The running back room definitely needs another piece into it. It's not complete. You got a guy like Breece Hall that we know is that guy. He's him. He's going to be the workhorse, but he's going to need to come off the field every now and again. It's just a matter of when. Is he? We don't know, right? We don't know what he can be, what he's not, but I don't know if we want to risk that when we're putting so many assets and so much focus on making this year and next year work while we have Aaron Rodgers behind center. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think the draft is a great idea, except I'm not with you on using a fourth-round pick. I don't like any of these running backs that much to where I would go ahead and use a pick that high. Mm-hmm. I think this is one of the weakest running back classes we've seen in a very long time. And if it was up to me, I would hope this guy would drop to become an undrafted free agent. But I'm a big fan of freaking Frank Gore Jr., man. And I know people are going to look at me like I'm kind of ridiculous, but Frank Gore Jr., we already know the kind of pedigree he comes from. The work ethic is there. The guy had like 1,100 rushing yards, a 4.9 yards per carry average. I think he had double-digit touchdowns as well.
10 touchdowns.
10 touchdowns, right? So the guy can ball. Like, he can ball. And we know the kind of work ethic his father had, and he's built like his dad, right? So a lot of those things, I think, for me, this is a kid who kind of already has an idea of what it's going to be like at the next level, having his dad back there in his corner telling him what to expect. I love how he's got probably some of the best balance of all the running backs in this particular draft class. I think he's got some real good, strong contact balance. And, again, a bowling ball, a guy you want to bring out there in short yardage situations, get those extra yards, you know what I'm saying, put him out there on the goal line to go ahead and bowling ball his way into the freaking end zone. I like him as an option, but as Mr. Irrelevant. I think with our last pick, he'll be there. I don't believe he'll go before that. I wouldn't risk losing him out to undrafted free agency. So I would use that last pick on Frank Gore Jr. But I'm going to go another note as well. I think we should bring a veteran guy in. Yeah. But for me, it's not Hunt. I want Zeke Elliott. And the reason why I want Zeke Elliott is because I think he's no longer going to be that freaking workhorse. He doesn't have that breakaway speed anymore. Like, he's definitely washed in terms of what he used to be. But what he does really, really good is gives you those short yardages when you need them, and he can protect your quarterback. He can pick up a blitz. We know that. He's a really, really good pass blocker. So for me, it's you bring in Zeke Elliott, and then you use Mr. Irrelevant to go ahead and a guy like Frank Gore in case a guy like Izzy goes down. Again, we saw that he was quite injury prone last year. We have no idea if he can go ahead and make it through a full season. And that's how you fix the running back room. Currently, as is, you have question marks, you have concerns. You know what Breece Hall is, but after Breece Hall, it's nothing but question marks. So bringing in a guy that's proven in Zeke Elliott that you know what he is, you're not going to go ahead and bring us freaking, a 60-yard, 70-yard freaking run for a score. You're not going to do that. But you're going to pick up that freaking first down on 4th and 2. You're going to go ahead and protect Aaron Rodgers' blindside, picking up that blitz in pass pro. That's why I want Zeke Elliott, and then you use Mr. Irrelevant on Frank Gore Jr.
See, so it's funny because I totally agree with Ezekiel Elliott, and I didn't say him on purpose because I knew that was the guy that you were going to bring up. So I went and found a different guy because I agree. I think Ezekiel Elliott, bringing him in would be incredibly smart. I totally agree. And I think you're right. Double dipping would be a valid option. If the plan is to double dip, then I'm on board with you. I love me some Frank Gore Jr. He's really, really good in that kind of utilization. The other one that probably is going to be either 7th round or undrafted free agent, big GreenBean guy is Carson Steele out of UCLA. Just a bowling ball, right? Coming down.
Steele's nice too.
Coming down the line. Blitz Crew with another super chat. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. I feel like Steele's going to be one of those guys someone takes a flyer on in the 6th, man. Like,
I don't know. I don't think so.
You think 7th?
I think he's 7th UDFA. Again, that's the grade I have on him. He's kind of a one-trick pony. Kind of just he does his one thing, and he's like Frank Gore Jr. Frank Gore Jr. is kind of a one-trick pony. He doesn't have the athleticism or the speed or the things to really be a game-breaking back. And in one of the worst running back classes we've seen in a long time, I think these running backs are just going to get pushed down the board. I think we're going to be surprised with how many guys go undrafted in the running back room. Just the value isn't there. Blitz Crew with a super chat. No one clear at developmental QB we like. I would take the best HBCU player, Davius Richard, in the 7/UDFA. Rounds 1 to 4, I want people to contribute this year. And I tend to agree with this Blitz Crew. Like, if you want to take a flyer on a guy, go and take a flyer on a guy in the 7th round with some traits and things like that. If a guy like Joe Milton makes it all the way to the 7th round and you want to use a mystery relevant pick on him, cool. Like, I feel cool doing that. But I kind of agree. I want guys in rounds 1 and 4 that are going to be bigger contributors. Then I don't want to say contributors, right? Because that seems like a wrong thing. In round 1, I think it's very clear I want a starter. Week 1, they need to be on the field. But in rounds 3 and 4, I want people that can, if they're asked to play, can contribute at a high level. That's where I want to find my high-level depth, is in rounds 3 and 4, because that's where you should find it. High-level depth should be found in rounds 3 and 4, guys that you want to develop, and that's how I look at it with that one. Thank you for the super chat. Moving on to the wide receiver room. This is this is an interesting one because this is a room that needs help. Definitely needs help. And on paper, and again with the big ifs, we've got some weapons here. Garrett Wilson, stud wide receiver. I don't think anybody's going to be mad at Garrett Wilson. Mike Williams, when he's on the field, is really, really good. Just hasn't been on the field all that much in recent years. Xavier Gibson is a guy that we all really, really liked. Showed a lot of flaws in his games last year in his ability to play wide receiver, but also showed us some glimpses of what he can do when he has the ball in his hands. Jason Brownlee, and we saw the connection that him and Aaron Rodgers had at camp, and maybe we can reignite that. Alan Lazard shouldn't be on this team. I want him cut yesterday. Irv Charles, Malik Taylor. When you look at the wide receiver room, I think we're both in agreement that it is not done. This can't be the wide receiver room that goes into the year. And if that's the case, if this is not the wide receiver room that can go into the year, how are you addressing it? What's your plan? What are some guys that you like to help fix this, and specifically in the draft, how can we fix this?
Look, man, I'm going to aim for the stars here, bro. I'm going to aim for the stars because up until recently, I didn't believe this was even feasible, but you're seeing more and more mock drafts as we get closer to the draft, talking about a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. just dropping down the freaking draft boards. Marvin Harrison, to me, is clearing away the best player in this draft.
Yep.
Quarterback, offense, the best player in this draft.
Yep.
It's not even close.
Yep.
If I'll never say generational because I hate that terminology, but he's the closest thing to it. He's him. He's going to be the guy that's going to get you a couple of all pros, multiple Pro Bowler. Like it's him without question. And he's dropping down the board right now. You're talking about a guy that I've seen the latest mock drafts where he's at 5th or 6th, and I don't understand how some teams would pass up on him in that capacity, but when quarterback is such a need for a lot of the teams ahead of in the draft, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't see a scenario where Arizona doesn't make this choice, right? If Kyler Murray is really your guy, you want to go ahead and give him an elite weapon like this to really find out, is this guy your guy, right? You paid him all that money. He was the reigning rookie of the year, or offensive rookie of the year. He's shown flashes of being able to play. You need to know if he's a buzz or if he's the real deal, right? I think Marvin Harrison will allow you to know that by the end of this coming season. But they're playing around. They want to go ahead and potentially get more assets, and I'm okay with it. If somebody comes up and Arizona trades out, I think Minnesota will probably be the best and most enticing offer with those 2 first-round picks. Mm-hmm. I see a scenario where Marvin Harrison drops the 5th. And if that happens, Joe D, go get that man. I think you add a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., and you're the New York Jets offense, again, I hate having to say this, but with a healthy quarterback, right? With a healthy Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not even going to say with a healthy offensive line. With a healthy Aaron Rodgers, you get a guy like Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Tyler Conklin, Breece Hall as tools, weapons for him to play with. The New York Jets are winning the AFC East. I'm sorry. I think it's a top 5 offense. Because you're talking about, Aaron, you don't have to do all the work. Just get the ball into these guys' hands. They'll do the work for you. Mm-hmm. It's the dream scenario. Now, if I'm being honest, I don't think that's going to happen. if this is me being the armchair GM and being realistic, I think the highest the New York Jets will trade up is potentially pick 8. And I think that's going to be for a guy like Rome Odunze, who should be there at pick 8. If it's not a Dunze, it'll be Neighbors, but I really believe it's going to be a Dunze. I think the Giants are going to go ahead and take a guy like Malik Neighbors. I think the Cardinals will take freaking Marvin Harrison Jr. It makes too much sense for them in regards to a year where they're trying to evaluate their current quarterback in Kyler Murray. So as much as I would love it to be the scenario, and if Joe Douglas sold the farm to move up for an MHJ, next year's draft class, I don't know if y'all have been paying attention to it. It's really nothing that's exciting, and the goal is to be giving up potentially the 32nd overall pick next year anyway, right? So it's a weak draft class next year. You're potentially giving up a late first-round pick, and with a guy like Marvin Harrison, you're in the conversation for the 32nd overall pick. I think that's a win all day. I think it's a win all day. You give this year's first. If it costs you the 3rd, it sucks, but I get it. This is the price you got to pay to move up. But I would give up this year's first, next year's first, and a 4th, and the 3rd, or maybe this year's first, next year's first, and maybe next year's 3rd, and this year's 4th. You know what I'm saying? Like if
I
we
think
can
that's
find
way
a way
too much.
But
it should be a 1 and a 1. A 1 and a 1 gets it done. If they want more than that, I don't do it.
All the way up to 3.
Oh, you're trying to get
Cardinals?
to 3. Oh,
Yeah.
You get if you want Marvin Harrison, you got to get to 5. Cardinals are going to take you. If you're the Cardinals,
You have to take him.
No, you have to take the Vikings package. You have to.
Oh, 100%. No, 100%. No,
you have to take.
If it's offered, that's
the reason I don't think the Cardinals are in on MHJ and has nothing to do with MHJ and everything to do with, one, I don't think they're evaluating Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray has shown that he's an NFL quarterback. He can win games. I think the problem with the Cardinals is that the rest of the roster is absolutely horrible. They need probably 2 wide receivers. They probably need an offensive tackle, because I'm not going to sit here and say that Jonah Williams is good enough. And Paris Johnson Jr. is a sophomore, right? Like, he's going into year 2. They need, 3 defensive linemen. They definitely need 2 cornerbacks. They probably need a safety. No, they don't need a safety. I forgot they have Budda Baker. They need a linebacker. Like,
Buda's getting up there, though.
Yeah, but again, you don't need it in the first, is what I'm saying. No. They need players. They don't have anybody on that roster is so devoid of talent. There is a legitimate argument to be had that they need an upgrade at every single position on the defense. Like, that's an argument to be had. And in a draft where defensive players are going to be pushed down the board, and this is a really deep wide receiver class, I get it. The question that the Cardinals need to ask is MHJ's value greater than the value of Brian Thomas Jr. Plus, let's say, Jerjon Newton plus Kool-Aid McKinstry? Are those 3 players not as good as Marvin Harrison in year 1?
That's a valid point. That's a very good point.
And here's just another wrinkle, because I am total agreeance with you. Even to the point, I'm going to bring in Sam McKinn's super chat here, and I'm going to talk about it in a second, because I think Sam, that's what I want to do, Sam. But to bring up a talking point, I have been seeing, and this could be, it's smoke season, Gunny, but I've seen a lot of smoke of Latham to the Chargers at 5, regardless of how the board plays out. That they would pass Marvin Harrison Jr. for Latham, because Harbaugh and Roman want to build the run game. They need a right tackle, and people are infatuated with Latham. Again, I don't see it. I'm not infatuated with him, but there are people that have him as offensive tackle 1. There are Jets fans that have him. Gunny has not Gunny. You don't have him.
Not me.
Not you. Sorry. Dom has him, I believe, as offensive tackle 2, and then Blewett has him as offensive tackle 1.
Yeah, I don't
have him in my top 5.
I love both those guys. I think they do incredible work. When I saw that, I was just like, what are they looking at? And what's crazy is a lot of my ability to analyze tape, I've kind of learned watching those guys over the years. So when I saw them say that, I was just like,
what are they seeing that I'm not
looking at? Like, what are they seeing that I'm not? I don't. And again, I think Latham is potentially going to be a fine freaking player in the league, but I think he's late 20s. Like, there's a bunch of guys I would pick before him.
The first round.
I don't know about that,
dude.
Man.
There's going to be a run on tackle. I don't see him as a tackle. It's going to be the Evan Neal experiment. They're going to put him in at right tackle in the NFL. It's not going to work. Then they're going to move him to guard, and it's finally going to work, and they're going to be like, damn, we should have done this earlier.
You think there's a world where the freaking Chargers will have the ability to choose any offensive tackle they want to include
I'm not saying that. I did not say that.
Okay.
I am just reporting. I saw from people. I saw it on Twitter. I can't remember. I think it was, it wasn't Leger. It was the other one.
That's crazy.
One of the Jets guys said that they think that Latham is going to go to the Chargers. And then I said, that's crazy. And then I looked it up. And it has, dude, there's smoke. Latham to the Charger has wheels. It's insane. But it has wheels, dude. But going to my kind of answer to the wide receiver thing is, Sam McKinn answers it perfectly, because this is exactly what I would say. In a perfect world, Sam, I would love to bring in 2 wide receivers in this draft. I have been team offensive weapon at 10 since the beginning. I always thought you need to fix the offensive line in free agency, and you need to get the wide receiver in the draft. I have been Rome Odunze at 10 or bust since before Tyron Smith, since I've been on that team since the beginning. Actually, the team that I was on originally was trade back, take Brian Thomas Jr. and get a second.
I love Brian Thomas Jr.
Love me Brian Thomas Jr.
Oh, man, I love that kid.
I was on him early, Gunny. Early.
I wasn't. It took me a while.
Early.
But all the wide receivers.
I'm talking like October. I was like, watch out, Brian Thomas is gonna be a first round pick.
So I'm gonna ask you something crazy because I made this crazy take on my show.
I would take him
at
10.
Okay, we're on the same page.
Yeah, I would take him at 10.
I've been saying if Adunze's gone, let's say Joe Alter's gone, Fashanu is gone because I like Fashanu a lot. He's gone.
I take him at 10.
I'm okay. We can't trade back, and we cannot trade back. We cannot trade back.
Yeah. Key. You tried.
That's got to be key.
There are 5 seconds left on the clock. You got to put a name in. Brian Thomas is the player.
Brian Thomas Jr. Yep. I think what he can do in terms of complementing what the rest of the pieces in that wide receiver room can do, bro. Oh my God. I'm a huge BTJ fan, and it took me a while. I had to get through all the wide receivers, come back, and start like looking for reasons to not like every wide receiver. And when I got to him, I was sitting there talking about like, oh, his route running, he's only good for goal route, blah, blah. Then you sit back and you look and you're like, man, this kid's a real fluid athlete, though. He's got some violent cuts. A stop and go ability is insane. You can work with that at the next level to go ahead and fine tune the route running. And it made me. I was looking for things to say negative about him, and I was like.
Led the NCAA in touchdowns last year.
In touchdowns. He's literally
on a team with Malik Neighbors.
That's the thing. That's the key. Malik Neighbors was the focal point of that team. And he still led the FBS in touchdowns.
Was a massive reason that freaking Daniels or whatever his name is, the quarterback, Jaden Daniels, got his Heisman is because of Brian Thomas Jr. Because 17. Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels were there last year. And Daniels and Neighbors had that connection. We knew what kind of they were. And BTJ took a huge step. I love BTJ. I would take him at 10. I am that high on him. But to go with what Sam is saying here, in a perfect world, you would get Rome Odunze at 10, right? And I love that pick. And with your second, fourth round pick, I would go back to the well. I'm not a Malik Washington guy, personally.
What?
I'm not anti-Malik Washington. I'm not anti-Malik Washington.
Okay.
If he's the pick, dude, I get it. He's athletic. He's just got T-Rex arms. I'm worried about that at the NFL level. What happens when you got to go against MC2? MC2's going to lock you up. And that's my concern with him. But
not many teams have an MC2, though, bro.
Dude, I told you. Yes, but one of the teams that does have an MC2 is the Dolphins.
The Bills.
And we got to play them twice.
No, the Bills do. They just re-signed old boy.
They have a slot like that?
They do, man.
See? So even the Bills, I wasn't even counting the Bills. Kahonu, whatever the Dolphins corner is, that dude can play. That guy's legitimately good at slot. And so the guy for me.
Hold on, let me guess. Can I guess?
Yeah.
Is it Tez Walker?
No. I like Tez.
Oh.
I like Tez.
Wow.
I like Tez, but I don't think he's there in the fourth.
Hold on. Okay. So then it's Xavier.
No.
Okay, then I'm lost.
It's Taj Washington or Luke McCaffrey. Those are the two guys.
Luke McCaffrey, bro. Okay. I'm going to say something probably just redonkulous.
It is, I know.
Luke McCaffrey has the cleanest footwork in this of all the wide receivers. I think his route running is elite. Like
spectacular athlete.
It's elite.
Dude, he's a spectacular athlete.
I do like Luke McCaffrey.
And here's the thing, you can get both of those guys in the fourth. Easy. I'll say this to everybody in the chat. If you get to go back to watch USC games, everybody's focusing on Brendan Rice and Caleb Williams and Marshawn Lloyd, the running back. No. Watch back those USC games and watch Taj Washington. He's a short slot guy, but I think I have him graded higher than Brendan Rice. I have him as the best USC wide receiver from last year, is Taj. He is so good. And the reason people aren't rating him...
Just shy of 6 feet.
And the reason people aren't rating him is because of the fact that USC runs the most boring offense I've ever seen in my life in terms of scheme. It's some variation of 4 verts. That's it. So he was never asked to run a real route. So a lot of people don't know if he can. Watch the Senior Bowl. He was at the Senior Bowl, and he put kids in the blender. He can run a route. So those are my two guys. I would double dip in the draft. That would be my plan. We're going to skip the tight end room because I think we already talked about the tight end room. Probably needs some work, but not anywhere in a 7th round pick kind of thing, if that's what you're going to do, or just run it with Kenny. Any counter to that?
I mean, that depends on where you think Theo Johnson's going to go.
In the 4th.
You think in the 4th?
Yeah. And that's too high of a... It's too high to use a tight end. You know what I mean?
I'm not going to lie to you.
I took Theo Johnson in one of my mocks, I believe. I think I took him. And I think he's a good enough prospect to be tight end 3. He can
100%.
probably beat out
I think
Kenny.
he could probably beat out Ruckert.
I don't think so.
I think he could. I think
he's not
he
that
could.
good. He's good. He's not that good. But whatever. If you're gonna go in the draft, do it later. A guy that I have an eye on, Eric All. He was hurt at Iowa, and if you want to take a punt on a tight end, he can play. But that's assuming that he falls. I don't think he falls, but assuming people get scared of the injury and he falls and he's there in like the 5th and you want to come up for a guy, because I know we don't have a 5th, that would be a thing that I would, that's a move I would make. Another one would be like Cade Stover at Ohio State. But again, I'm not taking these guys before the 5th round, and we don't have a 5th round pick. So
it's a wrap.
So,
good point.
Offensive line, because I think we're not even going to touch the defense. Let's go through the defense really quickly because I think it's going to be really quick, and then we can come back to the offensive line. Thank you for the super chat, Sam Aiken. I think we can both agree, and we're just going to look at the defense as a whole. Is there anywhere outside of safety on the defense, because we'll talk about safety as an individual thing, where you look at this roster and you say, we need another player, and I would like to address that with a player from X? Because the only spot that jumps out to me is cornerback, and I would like to draft a cornerback, and I would do so on day 2 because I don't think you're going to be able to keep both DJ Reed and Michael Carter. What say you? How do you look at the whole defense minus the safety room? We'll talk about them as an individual.
Cornerback is definitely concerning at this point, right? I agree with you 100%. I think the odd man out is probably going to be DJ Reed. I think you've got to lock up Michael Carter. He's one of the best. He's the top 3 slot receiver in the freaking league. The slot is such an important and undervalued position right now in the NFL where he can go ahead and lock a guy down in the slot. You need that. I don't think we move from him. You go ahead and extend him, give him the contract. Love DJ Reed. If there was a way to keep them both, I would do it. But I don't see him taking a hometown discount to go ahead and stay here. He's performed at a high level. He's performed at a Pro Bowl caliber level since he's been here. Just been snubbed by the powers that be. Man. I think ultimately you got to go and take a swing at a later prospect potentially in the draft. The thing is this though, like what freaking like round are you thinking that's where you make the move?
For corner, if you're going to make that move, I think you have to make that move in rounds 3 or 4. And that's where I get worried. Because you need a starter for next year. Because here's the question. And I think this will dictate how you look about it, right? How do you feel about Brandon Echols?
Honestly,
if we kept Carter,
Echols, man.
If we kept Carter and you put Echols on the boundary, are you cool with that? Because I am. And if that's the case, get a corner in the 5th or the 6th. We don't have a 5th again.
I'd rather do that than use a premium pick on a cornerback. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think I trust Echols more than most. And I think you feel the same way. I like what the dude has done as a New York Jet. When he's been asked to go ahead and step up, he has stepped up. He only gets better with more snaps, and he just hasn't had the chance to because he's sitting behind DJ Reed and Sauce freaking Gardner. Not a bad problem to have, right? But he's been back there learning. He's been back there freaking learning from those guys, absorbing it.
He started. Let's not forget, not even last year, 2 years before Sauce and DJ.
This is true.
It was Hall and Echols.
Yeah, no, they
weren't horrible.
Echols, yeah, I'm keeping Echols, man. I think Echols in this situation, you could. And again, we're thinking ahead because DJ Reed's obviously on this roster this season, right? But if DJ Reed gets let go, you move Echols up, and then somebody you draft in the 6th round, I guess, one of the 4th or the 6th round. You wind up making a move and having them sit and learn. And one thing I'll say about this team is this, right? Like, we don't trust them very much when it comes to like coaching up offense. I don't think that's something that they can do. Not possible, but we all know this coaching staff can coach defense. And I'm 100% okay them taking a guy that they like later on and believing they can develop him, because I believe also they could develop him. So, yeah, I'm with the Echoes route, drafting a guy in the later rounds. I think a guy like Johnny Dixon will probably be there, right? I'm a fan of his. So if you wanted to wait to the 6th, I think we got 2 6 now.
Yes.
With the Zach Wilson trade. So yeah, use one of those 6 on a guy like freaking Dixon. I think you're in a good position.
It's just I fell in love with so many of these guys, you know. Like I would love Max Melton out of Rutgers.
I like Max Melton too.
But you're gonna have to draft him so high. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he's going in the 3rd.
And
I don't think he drops past the 3rd.
And here's the thing too, is like if you get like a guy who just has a ton of traits, like you brought up Dixon, I like his teammate, 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚.
𝐀𝐮 King is
like if your plan is, let's say you're gonna keep DJ and you're gonna let Carter walk, 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚 is a really nice heir apparent in the slot. Sit here and learn in the best cornerback trio room in the NFL and just develop. Like, there are guys that you can definitely get late. And, like, let's not forget that during summer scouting, 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚 was being talked about as a first-round pick. He was talked about as a first-round pick. It was him and Kool-Aid were being talked about. Him, Nate Wiggins, and Kool-Aid were talked about as like first roundish possible guys.
How did he fall off so much? What did I miss?
This year he was just it was inconsistent. It wasn't bad. It's that one games he wasn't there, and then other games he was, and the gaps, there was no middle ground. It was either he was good or he was bad. It was either he was the worst cornerback on the field or the best. And there was no variability, and we've seen this a lot from him. So 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚 is a guy to keep an eye on. And then safety, so that we can talk about the offensive line for the last 9-ish minutes. I think you and I can both agree we probably need a safety to come in. How do you address the safety room? Do you bring in somebody in, period? Do you not bring somebody in? Do you just run it with what we have? How do you look at it?
I don't think they're going to, man. I think they're going to go ahead and leave it as is. And I don't agree with that. But again, as an armchair GM, I'm going to give you two answers to that, right? If you're talking about an impact move and bringing in somebody that can go ahead and impact the game, the flow of the game, Simmons is still freaking out there. I don't understand how he's still out there and he hasn't been brought in. But to each their own. I'm assuming the price point has to be out of the realm of comfort for Joe Douglas. But you got Chuck Clark, you got Tony Adams, man. You just re-signed Ashton Davis. And again, this defense, once you get to that secondary like that, like, it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen, right? With the defensive line as elite as it is, our cornerback trio as elite as it is, the safety is just on the field to be on the freaking field, right? Don't forget the linebackers and Quincy and, of course, CJ. I think it's probably the most devalued position on this roster because those guys aren't really going to get a lot of work. I know last year, Whitehead got to eat off of the freaking Buffalo Bills game because Josh Allen is just Josh Allen, but he was predominantly cold the remainder of the season. He had a high missed tackle rate that cost us on a lot of plays when we needed to stop, right? I don't think you're going to have that problem with Chuck Clark, who has one of the lowest missed tackle rates in the NFL when he's healthy. Ashton Davis took massive steps forward. I think about a year ago, we were like, get this kid out of here. Last year, we were like, where did this come from? We need to re-sign this kid. So you've seen the development. You've seen the ability of this coaching staff, again, on the defensive side of football to make players good, right, to elevate their game. So I think Chuck Clark being here, we should see another layer of elevation with this defensive staff. And I'm not going to lie to you, man. I like Ashton Davis a lot. I like Chuck Clark. And I like Tony Adams, man. And I think another year of those guys gelling together, I think will go a long way. And I think we're going to stay put. But if I'm the GM, I'm finding a way to bring Simmons into that room as well. Because again, that's a guy that's literally a top 10 at worst, top 15 guy in the league. I think he can go ahead and be an immediate impact, specifically in the run game as well, where we struggled quite a bit last year. But again, I don't think they're going to do anything. I think Simmons is going to be there, and we're going to just watch him join a different team here in about 2 months.
Easy. I think I agree with you. I think we're done with the safety room. Like, the guy that I would say, hey, if he's there, that'd be cool, is like Kitano Ladapo out of Oregon State. But that's just because he's an insane athlete. It'd just be taking another Ashton Davis, just getting another freak athlete and seeing what you can do about it. But the way that I look at it is, I'm not worried about the safety room. This team, we know that they can develop defense. And if we're going to be playing with a lead a lot more and teams are going to have to start throwing on us and our defensive line can just get to the quarterback, which is what they're designed to do, I don't think the safety room is all that important. This team knows how to scheme around that. Tony Adams is not that great of a safety, and, Whitehead wasn't that great of a safety either. And I'm not saying don't get an upgrade, but with mediocre, let's call it, safety play last year, we were still the best defense in all of football. So I'm not all that worried about it. If you're going to take a guy, take a flyer with the last pick in the draft with 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚 Ladapo, I would do that. I think that would be cool if he makes it that far. Maybe a Josh Proctor at Ohio State, just a guy who kind of does everything okay but doesn't do anything spectacularly. Those would be the only things that I say. Sam Aiken with his super chat. Has anyone seen game fills of cornerback 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚 Richardson or shut down LSU? What of Elijah Jones, Boston University? I cannot say I did any watching
defensive deep work.
I didn't go that deep on the corners. Unfortunately, I couldn't go as deep as I wanted to this year when it came to it. So I really kind of looked at the summer scouting list, who was going to go in the first 3 rounds. And for a lot of these positions, that's kind of what I did. So like linebacker, I watched 6 linebackers this year. I have no answer on any of the linebackers because I just don't think we're going to take one. And I'm not all that interested in linebacker this year. I kind of had the same kind of conversation with corner in my mind because I like Brandon Echols. So I was like, we can lose DJ Reed and re-sign Michael Carter and be fine. So unfortunately, Sam Aiken, I don't really have any answers there. I hope chat does, but thank you for the super chat. And last but not least, we got a couple of minutes left. Offensive line. This is the talking point. Everybody's going to have a topic or have a thing to say about the offensive line, Oh my gosh, the offensive line. What are we going to do with the offensive line? So before the chat yells at me and does all of this stuff and blah, 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 what are your thoughts about the offensive line? How are you addressing the offensive line? What do you think the biggest issue is? Have them yell at you for a little bit before they start all yelling at me. I haven't even said anything about the offensive line yet, and the chat is already yelling at me.
You must be okay. So I'm assuming you're watching them on a different channel because I'm on your channel.
Yes. I'm on TalkinJets.
That explains. I'm sitting there like, what are you talking about? It's just me.
I have with the software that I use, I have to stream to my channel. So there's 4 people in here, but I'm using the TalkinJets channel.
Gotcha.
That's why you can't see it.
All right. Yeah. So for the offensive line, man, and I'll be the first to admit, I've been on Team O-line from the beginning of the offseason, and I'm still technically Team O-line. I wouldn't be upset about the New York Jets going offensive lineman at pick 10. But I understand the argument about needing another weapon and how that can go ahead and impact and help Aaron Rodgers. And I've gotten to the point now where I've done so much study on the weapon side that I'm like, man, listen, I'm just trying to win this year and next year with freaking Aaron Rodgers. I think you got a guy like freaking Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses. I know we're talking about they're on a 1-year deal. Something tells me if those guys make a playoff push, they'll want to re-sign at a team-friendly deal. They're also on the back end of their careers. They came here because they wanted to play with Aaron Rodgers. They've made their money in the youth of their careers. They might be willing to come back. And I really love the Bakhtiari aspect, man. I think David Bakhtiari is still out there, and I actually believe a handshake agreement's already been made. I believe that he's going to be on this roster after the draft. It makes more sense because why hasn't he been signed? This is a guy, when healthy, is a Pro Bowl caliber freaking offensive tackle, and you've got teams all over that need offensive line help. The Titans, the freaking the Chargers, the Cowboys right now. Like, there's teams that could use a guy like him that are trying to keep their window alive, and he hasn't gone to see anybody. So I think there's already a handshake agreement in place for him to be a New York Jet, and I think that's the contingency plan for Joe of going weapon and then going offensive line, and I'm okay with it, man. I think you go ahead and then shift gears into the third, and you go ahead and get yourself an offensive lineman that you can go ahead and kind of sit behind and hope you don't need to see play this year. But I think that's also a premium pick where you can find somebody who's going to be more developmental than anything else. You're not going to get somebody that's ready to go in there day one and start, obviously. But he gets to sit behind Tyron freaking Smith and Morgan Moses to learn the freaking game from a technician and a freaking mauler, right? So either style will work in that aspect. So, again, I am Team O-line. If Joe Alt fell to us or if Shanu got drafted at pick 10, I'm going to be ecstatic. But I will also be equally ecstatic if Adunze is the pick, if we trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr., even Malik Neighbors, who I find myself actually softening up quite a bit on Malik Neighbors in terms of what else he does as a well-rounded wide receiver. He's starting to look more and more like a one-trick pony to me, but it's an exciting one-trick pony, right? And you add him to this roster, he can actually assist. But yeah, man, I think I've gone to the gray side. I'm not going to say the dark side. I'm on the gray side where I am still team O lineman, but you can sway me with the right pick at wide receiver.
What I'll say about the offensive line, and the chat's going to yell at me, is that I think people are overblowing the whole offensive line situation. And I think that people are looking at the offensive line in a vacuum. And this is why you have so many people that are, you have to get an offensive lineman at 10. You have to get an offensive lineman at 10. And they're like, look how many injuries we got on the offensive line last year. Look how many times Zach Wilson got sacked last year. And they're looking at it in a vacuum. And they're not looking at the offensive line as a totality of offensive line play, right? And what led to all of the injuries, what led to all of the sacks, and all of those things. And I think that people, I don't know how they forgot, but he who shall not be named, formerly number 2 on this team, right, is the biggest reason the offensive, because I'm not going to say his name. We're not talking about him. He's on the Broncos. We don't have to anymore. He's gone. The nightmare is over.
Yeah.
But people aren't like, are we forgetting that no one respected the quarterback? No one. They would just put 8 guys in the box. And then offensive linemen are having to block 2 guys with both of their arms. And he who shall not be named couldn't see Garrett Wilson running wide open. Every play.
Yeah.
The same way that people are like, an offensive line is going to protect Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to keep him upright, and he's going to do those things. Aaron Rodgers is also going to see the open wide receiver. Last year, if you look at the numbers, the offensive line of the New York Jets held up protection, and this is protection before pressure got there, for 2.5 seconds on average all of last year. Do you know where that ranks in the NFL?
I believe it was
15th, I believe. Or it was either 15th or tied for 16th.
Okay.
That is league average. Gunny, do you know what Aaron Rodgers' career time to throw is?
2.1 something seconds.
2.25 seconds if you include last year for the 4 plays, the 1 play, because he has technically, if you take him out, you're right. It is, if you take out last season, it is a 2.1 seconds he gets the ball out.
It ranks like 3rd all time.
Last year, we saw one of the worst quarterbacks play behind a broken offensive line and a guy who couldn't see the pitch. Now, this is not me saying I'm totally cool with the way that the offensive line is. That is not what I'm saying. The 3rd round pick should be a guard. We need somebody better than 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐚, Xavier Newman, and Wes Schweitzer. I think that there is a handshake agreement with Connor McGovern to come back to this team. I believe that to be true. And also, I think you need to go and get a guy like a Cooper Beebe, a Christian Haynes, one of these interior offensive linemen, because Elijah Vera-Tucker at guard scares the ever-living bejesus out of me with that Achilles injury. That becomes priority number 1, in my opinion. But a guy that you can get in the 4th, and Sam Aiken said him, and I love you, Sam. I'm going to pull him up. I'm going to find the comment. Javon Foster. Javon Foster is a guy that, you know what? You're going to be able to get Javon Foster late. And he is going to be really good, in my opinion. You're going to get him late, and he's going to do good things for your team. Another guy that you can get late that I'm high on, Christian Jones out of Texas. I am not saying that we don't need help on the offensive line. You can't rely on Tyron Smith to play all 17 games.
No.
But you know what you can rely on Tyron Smith to do? Probably play the first 8 games of the season. And you know for a fact that he's going to play the playoffs. He hasn't missed the playoffs ever. So all you need is adequate offensive line play for the other games. And the depth of Carter Warren, Max Mitchell, you add a guy in like a Javon Foster, you bring in an interior offensive lineman like Zach Zinter out of Michigan or Christian Mahogany out of Boston College. That is an offensive. And then you bring in a guy like Connor McGovern. That answers your offensive line problem. Let's say it is the opposite way, and like what you said, and you're bringing in a free agent like David Bakhtiari, which I think is legitimately an option. Or the other name that I have been seeing is a guy like Donovan Smith. He wants to come to the Jets. He grew up a Jets fan. He's not going to cost you all that much money. So if you can't get an offensive tackle, you can bring in a guy like Donovan Smith. Now, is he good? No, but we don't need a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. The Lions had the best offensive line in the NFL, and what did it do for them? Nothing, right? And then, in the opposite sense, the San Francisco 49ers, outside of Trent Williams, arguably had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, and they made a Super Bowl. The point that I'm saying is, and all of this is saying, is the offensive line is not done. It can't be. You cannot tell me that the interior offensive line for the New York Jets team is going to be Xavier Newman, Wes Schweitzer, and Jake Hansen. I refuse. It's not happening. But you don't need to get your backup at 10. You don't need it. This draft is so filled with interior offensive linemen that you can get a really good one in round 3. You can get a guy like Cooper Beebe, Christian Mahogany, Cedric Van Pran, Tanner Bartolini, if you're going to just bank on athleticism, Bo Limmer out of Arkansas. You can get some guys that are going to be like good. Just good play. Matt Lee out of Miami. A lot of people are sleeping on him. He is an interesting player. If you haven't watched him out of Miami, very interesting center prospect that you can get to be high-level backup. Because remember, Joe Tippmann can play all 3 positions on the interior of the offensive line. So, again, I am not sitting here saying that I am totally 100% comfortable with this offensive line and the situation that it's in. But I am more comfortable with the offensive line than I am the wide receiver room, because I think Carter Warren and Max Mitchell, I know that the chat's not going to agree with me, but Carter Warren and Max Mitchell are much higher guys, and I want my first-round pick to start day 1. I don't want to do what we did last year. We drafted for the future last year with Will McDonald, and everyone hated it. Why are we trying to do it this year? Go and win a wide receiver, a high-level wide receiver, because I know what the chat is going to say. The chat's over here. I'm not even reading it. I know what the chat is going to say. Couldn't you just get a wide receiver in the 3rd? Yes, you absolutely could get a wide receiver in the 3rd or the 4th round. That is totally what you're going to do. But now you're asking for a 4th-round pick to start week 1 and your 1st-round pick to start on the bench versus the other, and it should be the other way around. Your 4th-round pick should be on the bench and your 1st-round pick should be on the field. That's it. Who's going to have a bigger impact week 1? And who's going to be accountable for more points? If you have a wide receiver room, again, if we get a guy like Rome Odunze, it's arguably, with a healthy Mike Williams, it's arguably the best wide receiver room in the NFL. I think that's a legitimate argument that you can have.
That's facts.
I think it's a legitimate argument that or not room, but the best first 3 wide receivers in the NFL. Like wide receiver 1, 2, and 3. Because who's got that 3rd wide receiver right now?
Texans.
Yeah, but I have Garrett Wilson over Diggs. I have Williams over Collins, healthy Williams over Collins, and then I would have Odunze over Tank. I love Tank, but that's a great shout. The Texans. I forgot about the Stephon Diggs trade. That's a great shout. But like, who else? Who's 3 wide receivers deep? Like, that's my point. It's one of those things where I would take a wide receiver. Like, if Odunze's not there, trade back out of 10, take a Brian Thomas Jr. or an A.D. Mitchell or an Xavier Leggett or something like that. Week 1, you're offense. Like, it's just, again, I'm not drafting a guy to be on the bench week 1. Because whoever it is that we take at 10, whatever offensive lineman we take in the 1st round is not beating out any of the guys. None of them are. Unless Joe Alt makes it, then you got to kind of, Joe Alt is probably going to beat out Morgan Moses, but you're not going to trade for a guy and then bench him. Like, this coaching staff has never done that. Because there's no argument to be had for why Laken Tomlinson was on the field last year. None. He was the worst guard in all of football, and they played him all year. They could have put one of those, those pads that they use for the defense to practice their, like, the swim moves and stuff? You could have just put that out there. Would have been just as effective as Laken Tomlinson. I'm just saying.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Like, again, you can find guys late. You don't have to have an offensive line full of 1st-round picks. And I'm not saying that you need to have a wide receiver room full of 1st-round picks. But the chances of a wide receiver in the 1st round hitting is much higher than than a wide receiver in round 4 hitting, and I think that this wide receiver room is anemic, and that's why I'm team weapon in round 1. You need to fix this offensive line for sure, but I have faith. If I know Morgan Moses isn't going to miss any time. He's an Iron Man. He played with a pec injury. Is it a pec injury?
Yeah.
Played with a pec injury all year last year. And he's still
pretty much one arm.
Yeah, and he's still graded out as one of the best right tackles in all of football last year. I have no worry about him. Who I'm worried about is Tyron Smith and Elijah Vera Tucker. You need to get help for Elijah Vera Tucker's backup because it's not, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be Wes Schweitzer and Jay Canson. It better not be. But Tyron Smith's backups being Carter Warren and Max Mitchell, finally getting a full off season of health, I'm cool with that. But go get Javon Foster. That guy, I have no idea why he's graded so as low as he is. Go get Javon Foster. All right, Gunny, we went over. We went long. I knew when we got to the offensive line I was going to do that. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with the final day before the draft. The draft is tomorrow. Oh, so much fun. Guys,
finally.
If you haven't already, hit the like button down below. There are 95 of you in here, almost 100 of you, and we only have 62 likes. Hit that like button. It really helps the stream. Gunny, where can the people find you?
Well, you can find me on the New York Jets Situation Report channel. I stream every Tuesday night, the Hangout with Gunny and other guests. We're going to be talking, of course, the draft next Tuesday. It's going to be me and, of course, the viewers in that one. I'm pretty sure I'll have Tigo on that show. He's usually in the chat just waiting to go ahead and jump into the stream. But tomorrow, you can go ahead and join the first annual NFL Draft Watch Party. Now, I know that that GreenBean and Matt and Ryan are doing their own thing. So those of y'all loyal to those guys, y'all do your own thing. But for those of y'all that don't have anywhere to go, I'm going to be hosting a live watch party tomorrow. It's going to be myself. Tigo's actually going to be the guy that introduces it for me because I found out my daughter has her first ever play where she's going to be acting. So I'm going to be here a little bit later, but it's going to be Tigo, Dom C, Nick Shine, DK, BX Jets. You got Italy, Gino, the Italy Jet. Abby, you got Jacob Man. We're going to have a whole squad watching the NFL draft tomorrow night. And what's cool about that is you have a chance to go ahead and win an autographed AVT jersey. If you join us tomorrow before the start of the draft, give us your prediction of what the AFC East is going to do in terms of our teams, obviously. And if you're correct, the rules and instructions are on the channel, so go take a look at it over there. But you have a chance to win an AVT jersey. So that's where you can find me at, New York Jets Situation Report. And I'm usually on here on Thursday. Think of it with GreenBean as well. On Fridays, you can catch me on the Flight Squad on DK's channel. Tuesday nights, I think we're going to go ahead and change that up. Usually, me, Jacob Man Porter, and Abby, we do the New York Jets nightcap. So, again, some things are changing right now as we're getting into the start of training camp, etc. We'll keep you posted. But, yeah, man. Appreciate you having me on, brother.
Thank you for, again, I forgot. Me and GreenBean both forgot. We'd been talking about this for a while, like, GreenBean's going to be driving. He's not going to be able to be a part of it. We just forgot, and then it came up today. I don't remember what. I was watching a clip from their stream from yesterday, and I was like, oh, crap. I don't have a partner for today's, like, at all. What am I going to do? But, guys, thank you Gunny, first and foremost, for coming in and hanging out at ArmChair GM. Guys, the draft is tomorrow. I'm so excited. Wherever it is that you are watching the draft, whether it's at the TalkinJets Draft Party, make sure to have a drink for me while you're up there, even though I don't drink, and make sure to have fun and enjoy all that stuff and give those guys a hard time. You heard Gunny correct. I will be at and starting off his thing for him tomorrow at New York Jets Situation Report. His link will be in the description. It is also in the title. Make sure to hit the subscribe button there. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button for the Talkin' Jets channel. If you haven't already, go over to my channel at Talkin' Jets with Tigo and hit the subscribe button over there. Don't forget to hit the like button on your way out. And last but not least, go Jets. Draft season is coming to an end. I love you all.